So I ran out of time on the last video on the Jehovah's Witnesses and the sinister connotations and the links to corporatism, and the massive links to the skulls, the skull and bone societies, all of the political secret groupings that lead to all wars, and all of the funding for all of the shenanigans in World War I, World War II, and the links to the Mercers and all of the things. These are religious and moral institutions. And this is the page where I left off on, where we were just getting around to telling you that the people that are in the listings for Charles Taze Russell, and all of the family names with the Russell connotations that are linked to the movement and the launch of the Presbyterians and the other churches like the Mormons, and the one I forgot this morning, I've forgotten again. It's ever so difficult to remember where they go to the services but they do not speak. So this is what I've told you already. It's not where I actually stopped on the last one, but that's a picture of the Mayflower and a declaration that some of the people that are related to Charles Taze were on the Mayflower. And these are jokes about Admiral Godfrey in World War II and Godfrey in the Dad's Army team. And I think that's what you get now when you look at the most obvious one with the initials CP on the sleeve of the Dad's Army personnel. The video has been blocked. That's the Don't Panic video for for Butcher Jones, who is Corporal Jones in the Dad's Army team. All he's famed for is saying, "Don't panic, don't panic, don't panic." He died, I think, in 2012. And you've got Elizabeth Godfrey, and these are the Godfreys. Let me just read that to you again. There's the Mayflower. William Ackley, the land speculator seller in Iowa, traces his ancestry back to Prince Doan and Elizabeth Godfrey. Elizabeth Godfrey, in turn, was the great-granddaughter of William Brewster of the Mayflower fame. And Godfrey in Dad's Army, let me show you, he may be on that. Shit. Godfrey in Dad's Army has two sisters, and that is the same joke as the Taze Russell family. In one of the generations, the dad and the son marry two sisters called the Ackleys, and that becomes the ugly sisters joke in popular culture. There's Dad's Army Don't Tell Him Pike episode, and there is the CP on the lapels. The last time I showed you that video was in full screen mode, and there are the Belgian roosters for the people that done it again. They're the Belgian roosters for the Brewster that was cited as the relative for Elizabeth Godfrey, in Mayflower fame. That's the launch of Christianity within a few years of the declaration of the 30 Years' War in Europe. All of the sad bastards flit out and they launch their moralist campaign to cull the Indians on the other side of the world. It's ever so sinister. So I'll take you back to where I got to before, and I'll show you some of those secret societies, and then I'll show you the body double for the worshipper, who used to be my old boss at Welcome. I'm going to make a bigger video on that, because he's linked in still to massive scandals, and the companies that he used to work for and had massive listings on are now cited as the directors, and they've been relocated to Europe, so I cannot profile them for you anymore. Richard Sykes is just as deeply embroiled. He's on the board at Rio Tinto and massive organisations. These are my farmer bosses, and Richard Sykes was also my university boss at Imperial College London. That's the Sykeses, where in the movie where you've got to pick a pocket or two. And the Queen is on the Rio Tinto boards, according to Gordon Bowden. Hundreds of boards, but I still have not found her director ID. Okay, and I think that's where we left off, where the Watchtower Society is associated with the Illuminati. So there's the ancient winged sun disk symbols, yeah, which were picked, and the links to the Peel Towers in Scottish history and the Scottish roots of this. Tax evasion, we'd covered all of that in the first episode. And so there's the Russell family moving out with the Ackley names, and that is the Ugly Sisters jokes. Let me read you that one. Okay, and there's further up we've got the drugs trading thing. We covered that in the last one. Okay, so the Russell family appears to have moved. So this is Taze Russell, the founder of the Jehovah's Witnesses and the Bible Society and all the things that were called in that brief period of time. So the Russell family appears to have moved from Germany to Scotland and from Scotland to Northern Ireland in the 1820s. G. Russell went to New York City and then into Orange County, New York. He couldn't write firsthand how good it was when the potato famine, I think we covered that. Let's get you into so we did the Knights Templar, and I showed you the links to the Dukes of Bedford, and here we are. This is where we stopped the last time. So the Russells connected to groups that back to the Illuminati. Charles Edward Russell, Jewish socialist, life controlled by J.P. Morgan, and also for the New York Tribune and the Herald. Okay, and James Russell, Columbia University professor who introduced Wundt's Hegelian philosophy to his students at Columbia. Thomas Russell, revolutionist, Illuminati stream of revolution. Samuel Russell, representing the Baring brothers. That's where we got to. Okay, that's the Baring Bank, and that's the port of Shanghai. And there's Bertrand Russell, who's the Bloomsbury set druggy person. Yeah, and that's the massive linkages to the psychiatrists there, and the people that commit suicide, the Wittgensteins, in the same sinister secret societies that launch the people who are in the Chipping Norton set with Rupert Murdoch's daughter. That is the Freud family. Yeah, that's the drugs craze. Richard Branson now in charge of it. Okay, here's the eccentric Quakers. So my colleague who I went fishing with, yeah, is a Quaker, went to a Quaker school in Auckland, and he is a nice man, but he will not let him retire. Okay, the Quakers were invented by the same people that went west into America. Yeah, and it's one of the new religions, and it's got quite bizarre rules. You don't speak in the sermon. There is no celebrant. You just listen for others when an idea comes into their head. I've been to a couple. It's quite spooky. I did not say anything like I do every time I go to the Jehovah's. I never make a comment. I never put my hand up. I just listen and observe it. Okay? And they're really innocent looking people. I don't believe that many of them, or maybe even any of them, will be aware of these absolutely sinister roots for their religious beliefs. Yeah, it's entirely for profit, and all the profit goes to America. I admire them because they live in a commune-like environment. When something breaks down in the worshipping place, they get an engineer or another Jehovah from another parish to come and fix the kit. Yeah, and it's really good that way. Keeps the costs down. Okay, There's no collection. Yeah, I don't know how they make their donations. Yeah, but there are donations, and they very rarely talk about any of that. Okay, so Russell's connected in some way to the IBSA, now called the Jehovah's Witness. So that must be the International Bible Society of America, or yeah, not sure what else it may be. And we've got Pastor Rousseau. Okay, so the links to Rousseau are also. Ah, God, I've done it again. And I'm going the wrong way now. So we started on the Illuminati. I was hoping to get this over and done with in just 20 minutes or so. So there's the Mormons launched. There's the Bloomsbury bit that I've just done. So other Russells: Baron Charles Russell, solicitor, lawyer in Ulster and advocate for Ireland, 38. Okay, so we've got the launch of the Mormons, we've got the launch of the Jehovas and the previous names for that. We've got huge links to socialism and claims that people are revolutionaries. Jerome Russell, a Grey Friar, burned in 1539 for heresy with John Kennedy in Glasgow, Scotland. Philemon R. Russell, editor of the Christian Herald and Journal, in the March 1840 issue, he stressed 2,500 years in prophecy, which was an idea Charles Taze Russell would later pick up and promote. William Howard Russell, first war correspondent for London's The Times newspaper in 1854. The London Times has long been part of the world order. Yeah, don't know what war was on in 1854. Khartoum was 1888, I think. Yeah, 3 massive replays of the massive things that are the Freemasonic numbering code. That's the racetrack icon for just let's keep going round in circles, yeah, and keep the people that follow us totally absorbed by our trivia or our diversionary campaign or all of the profiteering that we engage in. Yeah, that's Formula 1 track. Okay, and so let's go down to some highlighted stuff. You should read this for yourself. Yeah, it's a massive historical profiling of what they've done and what they do right up into the 1960s. Okay, and we've got links to the Prior de Sion and the satanic thing. I cannot believe that any of the people practicing in Britain will still be doing those things, but I may be wrong. And I've not asked the undertaker next door about the body parts issues. Yeah, I doubt that she will comment on any of that. It is arcane, but all of the things I've told you about the royal behaviours too, they could well just be false news to cover up the rather sinister, basis for these beliefs, and all of the, the launch of this right up in the periods when we're having the global conflicts. It's really, really sinister. Yeah, that's the art department of the Watchtower Society. So let's get down and let me show you the body doubles and the pharma issues. Okay, and there's the Suttons. That's another set of religious, that's a Jewish name, and that's the Sutton School, which is one of the most expensive in the country. Okay, Salt Lake City, that's the launch of Mormonism. Richard Evans, A Century of Mormonism in Great Britain, and that's written out of Salt Lake City. Okay, so C.T. Russell's story. There was a Jewish family whose name was Roussel. They lived in 17th century Germany. They moved to a country called Scotland. Oh no, we've not done this bit. Okay, and there they respelled the name Russell. They took it on the ways, so it was Roussel and it became Russell. They took on the ways of their new homeland. The English tried to settle Protestants from Scotland in Ireland in order to control the Irish. Yeah, just puppets on the sectarian string. When the opportunity opened up to go to the Emerald Isle, Ireland, with the Scottish settlers who went to the plantation, Ulster, they went. It is possible, but not known for sure, that they learned to know the Rutherfords either in Scotland or Ireland. Okay, this author's, so Charles Taze Russell's being profiled now, and his understanding of the origin of the Watchtower Society. This author's previous book, The Watchtower and the Masons, tell the story how the Arian heresy began at the University of Edinburgh, Scotland. Yeah, I don't understand that, but that is the same. Yeah, the Marian movement and all the things about turning the religious authors upside down and denouncing the Arian movement. Yeah, it's a clever way. It's like being a double agent in the war. Yeah, anti-Arianism. Yeah, it's part of the biblical and Roman Catholic story too. Okay, and this is sectarian division and strife already beginning to hit the political aspects in Ulster. The book gives this author's reasons for believing that Charles Taze Russell's family in Northern Ireland were Arian in belief before coming, and yet all of them are the elites. That's the Aryans that are on the fucking Mayflower. Yeah, ditching out of the 30 Years' War, which is a massive massacre. I think there were 8 million people declared to be killed in that, all of them Christians fighting amongst themselves, all over Europe. And that is all the West of Scotland jokes involving Robert Maxwell the warlord and the Christian warlords. Yeah, here's the Ackley connection. It's quite funny. It's linked to the story about Godfrey, the old man in the Dad's Army team, with Calpurnius Piso's initials on the shoulder of his uniform. Okay, in the Watchtower and Masons, the early history of C.T. Russell is given. Charles and his father married 2 ugly sisters, Ackley sisters, a number of years after Charles's mother had died. What is an intriguing item is that C.T. Russell's mother's will indicates she owned land in Iowa. Let's keep going down until we find some more highlights. Okay, so there's the Mayflower, and there's the stories about the ugly sisters, the Ackleys, and then we get the declaration that William Ackley, the land speculator seller in Iowa, traces his ancestor back to Prince Doan and Elizabeth Godfrey. Elizabeth Godfrey in turn was the great granddaughter of William B. Rooster. Yeah, the Belgian rooster joke, and that is the cock crowing on the day that St. Peter denied that he was a friend of Jesus, because all of it is the same fraud. Yeah, Jesus never lived. Yeah, and that statement by St. Peter was absolutely brutally true, and it's a joke that lasts 2,000 years, and one of the Russells is a Mary too. Okay, and that's the censorship of the Dad's Army news and the stories about Corporal Jones. So do you get it? Godfrey, for a laugh, because all of the jokers at the BBC understand all of the history of religion. That's why Zebedee is launched into the news, when we watch it as a kid, when I'm only 5 years old in the 1960s. Zebedee, the life of Brian, the Aryan, which is the story I started with on the first of those shocking exposures that the Jehovas are the same joke, that the Pisos shared all of those years ago out of Naples. So do you get it? It's the Ackley sisters, that's the ugly sisters. I think that was in the joke about Cinderella, and her 2 ugly sisters. and here we've got the climax, and it's on the Godfrey story, and in Godfrey's little cottage on the Channel coast near Arundel, and all of the stories about all of the links to Longshanks and the Plantagenets. We've got two sisters in his house, really ancient coves, and all of it is the same joke about these massive things. And Godfrey also appears as the admiral in the team that is the Winnie the Pooh plot, and that is involving the stammering king, that is involving Winston Churchill and all of the people that are involved in the profiteering in war, and Ian Fleming, I can't remember what role he played in the cast list. It's massive. Okay, so I'm now gonna, I think that's us to the bottom of the slider. There's the Dad's Army team again. There's the badge. Calpurnius Piso. Everything. And you've got the Taze jokes that I showed you in video number 1. And you've got companies like Miller, Russell and Company stores in Salt Lake City, and that's where the Mormons were established first. And the Millers are the grinding the bone to flour joke. And all of it is just absolutely ruthless, and this is the same story as Christianity. Perhaps Charles Russell's family and his father Joseph Earl, like Joseph Kennedy, who had goals for his son to be president. Every story in the frauds involving religion involves a Joseph. And in the case of my Dr. Jones, my boss, who lived over the and we went to visit him over the Lord's cricket ground, his goldfish was Joseph, and it was the only thing that had been left by him, but by his dad, to him in his legacy, in his will. And that's the man that took me to New Orleans, to Antoine's, to dine where the popes and the presidents went. I don't know how they know that I was born for this, but they do. And it is my destiny, and I'm gonna fulfill it. Even if it takes my last breath. Okay, so, and there's the jokes about the Putin halfway up very near to Naples, just on the south side I think. You've got the word, the put place that I've made in several videos, and I've mentioned it, and that is the launch of the Putin stories about the Russian president, and it's a joke about the place name right next door to Naples, where the Pisos launched the Bibles. So at the Put-in Bay Convention, his sister Margaret had outlined how God had planned and chosen her brother. First, God had planted a seed with the early church, but the seed had laid dormant for centuries. In due time, she says, the seed of truth grew and was watered according to God's plan. That's the watering that we've had in the recent weather storms. All of them understand it. During the Dark Ages, the seed of truth was barely kept alive, waiting for God's chosen one to bring it to fruition. That's the same opinion as the papal nuncio in his Christmas message. What the gods do now is react ballistically with the weather patterns that we've seen in the last 2 months. 2 weeks rather. Massive floods all over the world, massive landslides. Okay, so and there's more on the Put-in Bay Convention. I forget which video it is, but that's the one where all of the missions come out of Antioch, and when they go through into Italy and the toe of Italy, that's when all the volcanic eruptions and earthquakes begin to occur, right into Naples. That's the Vesuvius explosion. Okay, and here's another little subtle joke, and then I'll stop and show you the body double for the worshipper, and I'll make the video on the pharma frauds tomorrow. Okay, the Illuminati's security system Russell Trust is the legal corporation that is the order of the Skull and Bones. Yeah, that's the vicious, university-led secret society that funds all of the wars and all of the warmongering lead-ups. It plants the people who are responsible, and they have them killed first. That is the heterosexual males that Greg Hallett talked about, and the heroes that try and end the war first. They get topped. Okay? Fine, and that is called whacking them. And in the film that Harrison Ford, did I play you the music for Harrison Ford? Yeah, because the things that I'm finding out about the pharma industry are putting me into that desperately dangerous situation, yeah, where they're prepared to section me, and they were prepared to execute him for killing his wife. And that's the man with the prosthetic limb in the film. Yeah, so that's moi, the innocent little pharmacist that started off in a tiny little town that he still lives in, and the execution team there is Dr. Ian Fingland, yeah, who's still, his son is still on the front page and the Facebook photo for my son Archie. That's how close they are. Yeah, that's the man that tried to have me killed in the NHS on behalf of the Queen, on behalf of the world ownership issues that I tell you about in every video now. That's the ownership of the hearts and minds and the religious masses in this case, and that is the healthcare fraud that he was able to solve in Hollywood. Yeah, and the elf in that film is not the Archbishop Company's oil company, it is the electric train systems in Chicago, the Windy City. That's the Elements reaction to all of the jokes. And Milton Friedman, the leader of capitalism all over the globalized fraud now, yeah, that is the web of globalism that consumes every country on the world and has now taken ownership of all of their central banks into private hands. And that was part of the Russell story that I told you in episode 1, the taking over by the Freemasons and the Russell person, yeah, with links to Jehovas, into the Bank of England in Cheapside. That's the Waterloo triumph that I keep telling you about. Okay? And defeat in ancient times implies that Jesus might have walked around in Cheapside, yeah, and might have been involved in the issuance of money himself, because that's what the authors did in Rome. The Piso-Frugi family ran the mint and released the coins called the asses into the Roman money stream. Yeah, that was a massive city even in those days. 150 years before Christ, same family wrote the Christ story, and it is the biggest fraud in world history. I'm going to stop, but let me show you the body double, and he's linked to Rebecca Brooks through Malaria No More, yeah, and Swiss companies, and all of the things that he ran in the, this is my old boss Trevor Jones. I was on the Forbes rich list. I'll very quickly take you next door after I've shown you the footage. So I've shown you the Jehovas launch, I've shown you their links to the Pilgrim Fathers and the bee roosters that were on that boat, yeah, out of Holland, yeah, and the Belgian coast, right next to the war deads, crime scenes, and Waterloo, incidentally. Okay, it cannot get more evil. Yeah, and the pharma people that are in the listing of the elite Illuminati families that we started with yesterday are the DuPonts. Okay, it's massive, and that's the pharma film. So let's get back to my mate in the Kelso Jehovas and his body double, who is my old boss at the Welcome Foundation Limited. Yeah, I've got it up in lights next door. And I'll briefly show you that before I sign off. Okay, so that's him. Trevor Jones, CBE, former R&D Director, Welcome, and Director General at the Association of British Pharmaceutical Industries. When he retired, yet he made a huge fuss on behalf of other people like me who no longer can afford, yet because they're jobless, or in the case of his cause then, was that the pensioners were stripped of their post-nominal titles, and if they wanted to be known as a fellow or a member of the Pharmaceutical Society, by that time it's really sinister, because it has just become the Royal Pharmaceutical Society. That's the asset stripping of everything that I loved when I was a boy, and everything that was free is now a profiteering exercise called CPD, and that is my wife's brother's dental activities. Every profession now is asset stripped with continual professional development, and all of the news that they release to launch that is false news. That is the Shipman serial killing. Shipman was the war correspondent for Iraq. Yeah, and his role is played by Robin Williams, and he died really young as a result of that, because he makes movies about drug discovery and Parkinsonian syndromes, yeah, in young children. Yeah, and he makes movies about the Christian missions, and he was in, his image was in some, oh no, sorry, that's the other actor that I greatly admired. Yeah, in the Deer Hunter movie. Anyway, let's move on. This is Trevor Jones, and part of his story is working, and he's declaring that all of the massive illnesses that they get in equatorial Africa, yeah, are really difficult to treat, and they're really dangerous to incur them. Yeah, he wants to make more money out of doing that. They cannot do what we've done to give them decent and clean drinking water and to get rid of the parasites. And Bill Clinton now has taken over the with the global warming quest, the concept that the pesticide companies that were Rothamsted, yeah, that delivered the nerve gases for World War I and were researching on them, yeah, at that time. Those are my old colleagues at Rothamsted. Yet their funding has been shunted into Bill Clinton's global warming scam, and that's the acts of God about the human evil. So this is the body double, and it's incredible, the likeness. I can't remember what Trevor's accent was like, yet they're really nice people. I will not tell you what his new name is, yeah, in case it causes offence. I taught him to fish, and they are really nice. They talk to me all of the time. If it is Trevor Jones, I don't know how they live with their consciences. Yeah, anyway, let's see what this man's about. He's massive. He's on the Forbes rich lists and the Debrett's listings. Interlocks to Rebecca Brooks, the fraudster, with Rupert Murdoch. And you should see what Richard Sykes has got in his transcript. Boss at Imperial College London before Care of Kinlochart and before Miss Manningham Buller, and she's the boss at MI5, and all of them now are appointing intel people, because I've come on the scene and they need me killed, and they need everybody in the whole world to be duped by false news, to be duped by being given too many drugs by volume, so that they can make more and more money at the expense of the society that everybody in my generation got for free. All of the housing, all of the student delivery, all of the academic fees that they now have to pay in every tier of education. And I've had several discussions this week on the closure of the creche systems and how expensive it is now for young mums to go back to work. And all of the people that do that, like my wife, yeah, they're totally unaware of the carnage that they create with their capitalist policies. Yeah, it's quite easy to give the Jehovas a conscience, because they're really decent people, and none of them monitored the making of my video this morning, which is very unusual.
I used to run a very large research and development operation in Wellcome years ago. And in those days, and by many other pharmaceutical companies' standards, we felt that we could do all of this work in-house. Well, the complexity of today's discovery and development programs have shown you simply can't do that. TI Pharma has a proven track record in bringing different kinds of expertise, whether that's academia, knowledge institutes, research institutes generally, big pharmaceutical companies, small startups, SMEs, and using all their skills to bring that to a conclusion, to not just do interesting academic research, but to deliver the products that come from that kind of collaboration. An important factor in the challenges we have for drug discovery and development is predictability. How do we know that an entirely new chemical or piece of biological material is going to be safe in a human being, or is actually going to work in a particular disease condition? There's a project on African sleeping sickness, which is a desperate condition, and they're really looking at new ways of attacking that disease using existing medicines which we know are safe but work in a different condition. And
so that's what I worked on. I worked on pesticide science in those early days, which is why I became interested in toxicology, and thanks to the global researchers who are now interested in my exposures on how their funding is being shunted into Bill Clinton's global warming scam. Everybody's at it. Yet the people in the Catholic Church, there are relatively young people, yet the pair of them work on the global warming scam and selling it like the eco banks and all the eco infrastructure frauds. Yeah, and the gods go ballistic on it, and all of the sad bastards pretend that they don't understand it. Right then, so let's show you what this man has as a profile. Yeah. Richard Sykes is on the Rio Tinto board, and all sorts of, he's got dozens and dozens and dozens of directorships. Just turn the computer on here. So I'm going to make another video on this tomorrow because it's too big to cover here, but that man that you just saw, Trevor Jones, has got, he had huge numbers of holdings with a company called Edinburgh Pharmaceuticals. So there is his name. Let me just put that on the cardboard box so we don't get too much hum. Okay, so that's Directors and Company Secretary timeline. When I first discovered this, it was the normal setup with Edinburgh Pharmaceutical Industries Limited trading out of the places near Straighton where I worked for Boots before they gave me the sack. Yeah, everything I love is killing me, yeah, and persecuting me. And the woman who gave me the sack is the most attractive woman I've seen in the whole of world history. You should have seen her in her Zumba gear, and she was my favourite Facebook friend for a long, long time. And all of a sudden, yeah, when they begin to incur the pathologies, no one wants to talk to me. She got adhesions. Yeah, incredibly painful, like my niece. Okay, so Edinburgh Pharmaceutical Industries Limited is now a fucking director on this list for the Wellcome Foundation, which is the company that I used to work for, and it's still fucking open. Okay, with Edinburgh Pharmaceutical Industries, since I exposed Trevor Jones's huge scams and the huge numbers of directorates that he had on it, yeah, right next to Straighton, just on the, I think it's the west side of Edinburgh, opposite the golf courses and the ski runs. Yeah, and quite close to Dalkeith, and that's where the Duke's at Dalkeith, and I used to give the staff from Bootsy's a lift there. Okay, let's get on to what he does. So there he is, Professor Trevor Mervyn Jones. On this one, he's dropped out in 1994, yeah, when it had already been sold to Roussel Uclaf. Yeah, it's just amazing. And there's famous names on the listing: Sir Richard Brooke Sykes, Sir John Weddell Robb, Sir Graham James Hearn, Sir Anthony John Tennant, just down the road from Edinburgh Pharmaceuticals. Yeah, and that is the Tennants that are the Tweedsmuirs and become the Governor Generals and in Canada, and they become Doctor Who. Professor Trevor Mervyn Jones. He's a legend. Let's find that. Okay, so Trev. I had huge respect for him, and I wrote to him all the time telling him that, yeah, when I came back from New Zealand, and I told him how greatly I admired his campaign to keep those pensioners having the letters behind their names without having to pay £300 a year to do that, even although they were not practicing anymore. Okay, so there it is. It was registered on the outskirts of Edinburgh. Since I revealed that, it's now morphed into Ayrshire. Okay, and here's his links. Here's his Forbes listing. Trevor Jones, Trevor M. Jones, PhD, served as Director General of the Association of British Pharmaceutical Industry, an association representing the interests of approximately 75 British and international pharmaceutical companies. That's the pharma magnates, yeah, that are profiteering through the Scottish and British doctors. 40 grand every year they make from dismembering their patients. And that is why I showed you the Fugitive theme music, because I'm exposing that all single-handedly. Okay, from 1987 to 1994, Prof Jones was a director at Wellcome plc, a major healthcare business that merged with GlaxoSmithKline, where he was responsible for all research and development activities. At Wellcome, Prof Jones led the successful development of numerous pharmaceutical compounds as well as a number of over-the-counter medicines. He received his Bachelor of Pharmacy from the University of London and is currently, that's Imperial by the way, where Sykes and all of those other fraudsters have taken over. Currently a visiting professor at King's College London. He also gained an honorary doctorate from the University of Athens, as well as honorary doctorates in science from the Universities of Strathclyde, where I failed to get any form of attention at my interview, and the next head of the ABPI was the chair. And on the panels there and at Robert Gordon's was Bill Scott, the thief from St Andrew's House, who condones all of the commissioning of the new drugs. Yeah, Nottingham, Bath and Bradford and the United Kingdom. Prof Jones was recognised in the Queen's Honours List and holds the title of Commander of the British Empire. Yeah, that's the Queen that I wrote to within days of my sectioning happening. Yeah, they did not have the courage in 2011 because of their frauds against their patients. And that's my wife. Tried to murder me as soon as the government asked for it out of Chipping Norton, where the Freuds are in the drinking club with the Prime Minister. Yeah, and they're married to Rupert Murdoch's daughter, Lizzie. Okay, title of Commander of the British Empire. Can you see the peer pressure that destroys our world and the patient's prospects? For greed. He is also a fellow of the Royal Society of Chemistry. Yeah, also been asset stripped by the Royals. Yeah, everything that we got for free, everything now you have to get reaccredited every year to keep your right to work. A fellow of the Royal Society of Medicine, a fellow of the Royal Pharmaceutical Society, like me. There's the plaque on the wall. It's absolutely meaningless. Yeah, that's the little bung you get, like the OBE that Stephen Andrew Hancock's, yeah, Dr. Stephen Andrew Hancock's OBE has got to desert his patients, and he's in the Prime Minister's constituencies too. Prof Jones is a member of the board of Arthurian Life Sciences Limited, an investment fund established by the Government of Wales with the objective of supporting and growing employment in life sciences and wealth creations in Wales. Simbec Research Limited, a leading clinical research organisation in the United Kingdom. You should see the laundering tools that they use. Yeah, the company that I showed you that has now Edinburgh Pharmaceuticals as its director, yeah, is still trading, yeah, and it's all a laundering exercise to get the profits and the tax evasion out of our country in bundles of under £1 million at a time. Okay, Professor Jones is a founder of the Geneva-based public-private partnership, that's Malaria No More, with Rebecca Brooks, another interlock, yeah, with the Chipping Norton set, and with Rupert Murdoch's massive news vent, yeah, and it's a massive fraud, and it's the UK Stem Cell Foundation, and they are launderers too, even in the University of Durham, and the people that called Stefan, yeah, and I used to work with, and even Dr. Shazo did not like them because they're rivals for the funding streams, and there's no funding at all now into the universities because all of these people suck it up. And that's why I would be stunned if the body double for Trevor Jones is actually that greedy. He's a nice man, and if he is actually that greedy, I do not know how they live with themselves, which is why I'm adding it to the video I made on the Jehovah's Witnesses. Okay, a former chairman of the boards of Renuron and Synexus, Prof Jones is also a former member of the boards of Next Pharma Technologies Holdings Limited, Sigma Tau Industry Pharmaceutica, Reunite, Renuron, and on the listings that I've looked at earlier, he's actually in Iranian companies too, and there's Richard Sykes. It's massive. I'm going to make that video tomorrow. There's massive. Let's get to the and in virus. Do you get the picture? All of the scientists now are pretending that global warming, yeah, global warming is the citizens' fault, and we're going to have to fund that now. Yeah, we're going to have to be taxed for it. Yeah, they do not know that the gods are coming after them. And Nepal Leprosy Trust, okay, and the pension trustees, all of them are on the take. Pyramid estate management, yeah, that's the Ponzi scheme concept. Rio Tinto PLC, postcode Southwest 1 4AD, that's Sir Richard Sykes, yeah. Yeah, there are hundreds of them, absolutely hundreds of them, and if you go even more generic just to Richard oh, and did you see that one? De La War, let's take it back, where is that one? So that's the Warren joke and the De La War joke about the people that go to America and launch, yeah, the Pilgrim Fathers, and that's the people that become the masters of the Piso horse. Okay, so there's all sorts. So Richard Brooks Sykes, Sir Richard Sykes, Richard Sykes, Mr. Richard Sykes, and dozens of different postcodes. Yeah, it's all a massive for-profit exercise. Okay, gonna stop now. It's now 1 o'clock in the morning, and I have not processed the video I made on the Jehovas, and the clouds were hanging all over the town all morning as I profiled that. Yeah, it is absolutely sickening. Every one of the religions is a totally for-profit exercise, and they have no morals at all. other than the simple people like my dad and all of the other people that believe everything they hear from the pulpit. It is a crook, and this is the fraud that dismembers everybody's health. Yeah, and my dad, we came back from New Zealand because my dad had some near-death experiences under the NHS. Yeah, and that is the doctor that said he would work with me to try and protect all of their patients from the Scottish Government and the St Andrew's House frauds. That doctor hated. He's a decent man. I like him still. Yeah, England is a sad, sad, deviant former head of the school governors, and that is the school that was led by Russell. Mr. Russell was the headmaster at that school when I went there. Night night.